The big question now we're going to debate is reforms that haven't really taken off. Talk about FDI and multi-brand retail, aviation, banking, pension, insurance. All of those reforms have really been put on the back burner. The big question though is, can Pranab Mukherjee alone be blamed for a delay in reforms? And that's why I'm going to begin this discussion with Dr. Bimal Jalan. Dr. Jalan, what do you think? Should Pranab draw the flag alone?
No, I don't think you should attach any blame to any particular ministry. You know, it's a question of whether you do it or you don't do it. The main problem that India faces today that we say we will do it, but we don't do it. Therefore, you have a problem of expectations.
Mr. Narayan, what is your view on this? Some of the reforms, like say reforms in the oil sector, the subsidy burden, were perhaps Pranab Mukherjee's responsibility. That did not take off. Should he alone draw the flag for it?
I think we are making a bit too much about things like FDI in retail and FDI in insurance. I don't think that just by having FDI in retail or FDI in insurance, suddenly the GDP growth will happen by more than 1% or so. There are a lot of other things that need to be done. Particularly one of the things that you mentioned, diesel price hike, petrol price hike, reduction of subsidies. These certainly are at the feet of the finance minister. This was something that he could have done and which he did not do. And certainly that we are paying the price for this fiscal expansion and the large borrowing that it entails.
Oh yes, fiscal discipline is something that everybody's been talking about. India Inc. has been losing a lot of sleep to it, and Sanjeev Aga, which is why I want to get you into this entire debate. Reforms that did not take off. How much of a responsibility should Pranab Mukherjee shoulder for them?
First is, I think, not just Mr. Mukherjee, but the government at large doesn't have the vision as to what to reform or the desire to go ahead and reform certain things which I have already alluded to. For example, how to get politics out of the economic management of real estate, how to get politics out of the economic management of telecom, of railways, of aviation, and so on. And there is no vision and there is insufficient will. I mean, this is all a question of, you know, interlocking considerations or obligations going back for decades.
But gentlemen, let's now turn focus and talk about the tax proposals of Budget 2012 that really earned Pranab Mukherjee the global ire. It got India Inc. up in arms, it got global investors jittery. Dr. Jalan, do you think the government handled GAR issue a bit too hastily?
No, I have no doubt. You know, I mean, I share the views of many people. I mean, I'm not making a judgment on him. There must be a good reason and a bad reason and something, and you make mistakes sometime, and you take moves. But I personally, and this is just my opinion as a taxpayer and a citizen of India, and not somebody who has been involved in so many things otherwise, is really that, you know, you don't announce something like, say, GAAR in the budget. Then you find that a lot of uncertainty it creates. So you postpone it by a year. Then you do something and which is legal, which is upheld by Supreme Court, and then you introduce a retrospective amendment. It's not a question of how big it is, you see, how big the loss is.
I know Anand Sharma wouldn't answer that. I did coax him earlier on in the show, but Mr. Narayan, you're privy to how North Block functions. You've been Finance Secretary, you've head the Revenue Department, and which is why I want to ask you this question. The whole GAR proposals and the way it was worded in the union budget, do you think that really undid a lot of his goodwill?
In fact, this year's finance bill is, I would unequivocally say that one of the worst finance bills that has been drafted. And I have been in the Revenue Department and the as Revenue Secretary for a while, and I've seen how that department actually functions. So I am quite surprised that the kind of clauses of the type that went into the finance bill were actually enacted. So I think they have done. I think this particular budget, and particularly the finance bill on the revenue side, has then done quite a bit of damage insofar as investor sentiments are concerned, in terms of foreign inflows are concerned. I think that has certainly had an effect. But again, would you blame the finance minister alone? Because the budget is again the joint responsibility of the entire cabinet.
Oh, absolutely. There is collective responsibility of the union cabinet, but I guess he was the finance minister, and so he's had to earn the ire that he did. But Sanjeev Aga, I know you're not a big fan of the GAR proposals. I also know you do not support the retrospective taxing of Vodafone. Do you think the government completely messed it up with these two tax proposals?
Undoubtedly, Supriya, because it's not a question of going into details. It was apparently insincere. I mean, it was apparent to everyone. I would go to, I mean, Vodafone, as you know, I used to compete with them when I was working. So it isn't as if I have to bat on their behalf. But even when the first income tax notice went out some years ago, this was before Mr. Mukherjee's time, it was obviously insincere. It's not right for a government to be doing these kinds of things. And I just can't understand why a seasoned person like Mr. Mukherjee got so obstinate and, worked up and went to these lengths to pursue something which will do the government no good. I don't think they'll ever be able to collect that revenue, because it's obviously not correct. And they've just got a lot of egg on their face. He would have been well advised, and he's the last person I expected, because he has the reputation of being a very balanced person otherwise.
A lot of people in North Block now say that he was perhaps misled by his own officials, but that apart, the new dispensation, the whole point that the Prime Minister has taken over the finance portfolio. Dr. Jalan, do you believe, because you've been privy to how government functions both within and outside of North Block, do you believe the government could reverse the tax proposals that are considered draconian?
No, I would say that, I can't presume what he will actually do. But if there is a good case for reversing some decisions, they should be done. You take a consensus. If there is an investor's confidence lacking, and it is not something which is vital to our country.
Sanjeev Aga, what do you believe? You've also been privy to government from the outside, from corporate India, who's interacted with various departments in the government. Do you believe the government can reverse this decision?
Yes, the government can. And the government is a huge organization, but first you decide what you want to do. And if you decide that this is not the right thing to have been done in the first place, then there are many skillful ways of achieving that end result. And so I'm not too worried as to how it will be achieved. The first thing is to be clear that this should be reversed. And I think the government should reverse it.
Dr. Bimal Jalan, I know you've worked very closely both with Pranab Mukherjee in his first stint as finance minister, and of course Manmohan Singh when he was the finance minister. How do you assess this entire development and the change of regime in North Block?
I am very pleased that the finance minister has taken over as the finance minister just now, at least for some time. And I'm not making a personal remark, but we have the, I think, great privilege of having somebody who has administrative experience of, from the ground level, as it were, in the Ministry of Finance, policy levels at the highest levels of the Ministry of Finance, political experience as the Finance Minister and the Prime Minister of India for a very long period. So I'm very glad that all the uncertainty, everything else that you are seeing, that you would now have a leader who can probably resolve all these issues, and that he will.
All right, that he will. That's a very, very tall statement that you're making, because the fact of the matter is that the Prime Minister has been at the helm of the things for the last 8 years. What has stopped him all along from taking the big decisions that he will perhaps take now as Finance Minister? Sanjeev Aga, you want to answer that?
Supriya, that's an answer I don't have. For 8 years, I've not been able to figure out what goes in and what has gone behind the Prime Minister conducting himself the way he has. I have always wanted him to be himself, what I think he is, and he has always held himself back, and I think the country has suffered. Now, why he has done that, there are all kinds of, suggestions, but I think that really lies in the mental makeup of a personality which I am not privy to.
He's a free market economist. Most economists and India Inc. will definitely believe that he gets back to his true fervor, discovers or rediscovers his first love, which really is finance. We're going to turn the debate now to what was Pranab Mukherjee's biggest strength, and that was to cut across party lines, to manage adamant allies. I mean, there are coalition compulsions. Mr. Sharma, which is why the question to you, how tough is it to manage coalitions, and wasn't Pranab Mukherjee really doing the dirty job?
See, when you work in a coalition, there are challenges, there are compulsions and constraints, which we recognize. But at the same time, once a consensus view has been taken, that ought to be respected by everyone. Congress is the leader of the coalition. When you look at the other coalition partners, they have all been supportive, whether it's the DMK or the NCP, or the National Conference or the RLD, all the other coalition partners have been fully supportive, except for one, and I would term it as unfortunate.
He's not going to name Mamata Banerjee on the show, but he's of course calling the whole development unfortunate. Dr. Jalan, we keep talking about the reforms, we keep talking about tough decisions that the government needs to make. But the fact is that Congress does not have absolute majority. There are coalition partners, there are coalition compulsions that one perhaps has to stick to. There's a coalition dharma that has to be followed.
No, there are coalitions. Coalition is a fact of life. You know, since 1989 we have had 9 governments. Some were short term, 2 completed their full term. So the question is that if you have a coalition, and we also have a cabinet which says it's a collective responsibility. So if you have a cabinet, if you have a governance system, I mean whether it is a coalition or not a coalition, we have to govern. And this is something that has to happen. If that cannot last, if nothing happens, then I would say let's go for re-election. What's the problem?
All right, coalition is a way of life and is here to exist. But Mr. Narayan, Pranab Mukherjee often blamed coalition for the big-ticket reforms that did not happen, for not being able to take tough decisions. How fair is that argument?
I have seen a Prime Minister. I worked in a government when I've seen a Prime Minister work with as many allies, nearly 22 allies. And the allies included Trinamool Congress. And we seem to be doing, at that time, things seemed to be going on fairly well. Nothing happened. So working with allies is an approach of building consensus and taking it forward. But one does get the impression that it's not the allies alone who are to blame, but even there are severe dissensions in differences in policy approach within the Congress party. And that is what perhaps might have stayed his hand. There are people within the Congress party who appear to be not very much favor of in these kind of market-oriented reforms.
Mr. Sharma, I see you smile, but I'm not going to let you make a political picture. I'm just going to ask you my last question on the show, and that's about political landscape, politics after Pranab Mukherjee. How different will life be for the UP and also for the Congress party?
I will say that yes, he, as a leader of the opposition, performed a very difficult job over the last 8 years. Leader of the House, sorry, I stand corrected. So that, of course, the Congress will take a call on that. When you say that such a senior person who has been multitasking for long, if he moves up to another office, surely that absence would be felt. To say that that will not be, no. But then there are experiences that remain, and there are shared views which remain with his colleagues, senior colleagues, and also many memories.
I don't know about all of you, you've all had a view on this, but I respectfully believe at one level that he brought sanity to the job, especially at a time of crisis. He was someone the government was constantly turning to. He was just much more than finance minister to UPA, and which is perhaps the legacy he really leaves behind. Gentlemen, thanks very much for being with us on UPA II, Life After Pranab Mukherjee.